If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 61, The Final Battle Nears. Nature Manor. Nearly 2.5 months have passed since the fall of Upper Moon 6 in the entertainment district. Ryu's life had returned to the familiar routine of the Demon Slayer Corps tracking, killing demons, and providing support. Today, the Nature Manor was lively and filled with chatter, as Ryu, who had been free for the past 2 days, asked the Demon Slayer Corps to send any Demon Slayers who wanted his guidance. Almost all the Demon Slayers knew of Ryu's reputation as the strongest and knew he has deep knowledge of breathing techniques. Because of this, many sought his guidance, hoping it would improve their own breathing forms. Whenever Ryu had free time, he would notify the Corps, and they would send Demon Slayers waiting for his guidance. Aside from Tatsuya and Haruka, 5 Demon Slayers had come to train under Ryu today. The 5 of them had eager expressions, having heard from others that those who trained under Ryu had significantly improved their breathing forms and enhanced their strength. The 5 of them stood before Ryu, gripping wooden swords in their hands. Among the group, 1 was a girl, while the other 4 were boys, all of them Hano, 8 of 10, ranked. Ryu looked them over, his expression relaxed. As Hano ranked slayers, I know you've come a long way. At least, you guys should have beheaded 25 demons. But, let me give you one piece of advice. As demon slayers, you never know what kind of demon you'll encounter. It could be an ordinary demon or, it could be an upper moon. And if it's the latter, well, that often means certain death considering your strength. The point is, be careful. There's no shame in retreating or calling for support if the situation demands it. Now, let's set aside the boring stuff like advice. Show me what you've got. Use your strongest breathing form and attack me, all of you, at the same time. Without hesitation, the 5 slayers entered their breathing state. 2 adopted stances for wind breathing, while the others prepared with shadow breathing, snow breathing, and water breathing. They lunged forward and launched their attacks in unison, the air sizzling as their wooden blades sliced through it. However, despite their best efforts, none of them could land a single hit on Ryu. Ryu evaded their attacks effortlessly, his movements casual and relaxed. Evading their attacks, he didn't counterattack aggressively, instead, he used his wooden sword to tap their weak points, guiding the mistakes in their form that could prove fatal. Ryu's figure flashed to the Slayer using shadow breathing, striking him hard and sending him stumbling back to fall on his butt. The essence of shadow breathing lies in stealth and elusiveness. Your movements are too predictable, Ryu stated and attacked the other 4. Turning to the 2 wind breathing users, he said, wind breathing relies on speed, sharpness, and strength combined. You 2 lack all 3. If the wind Hashira saw your forms, you'd be tortured by that madman. Snow breathing combines the nature of water and wind, focusing on sharpness, flexibility, and control. You lack control. As the training spar continued for nearly 30 minutes, the 5 demon slayers were forced to repeatedly use their breathing forms. Ryu corrected their mistakes and suggested some improvements in their forms. The training made them understand the gap between their current abilities and Ryu's level, but it wasn't intended to crush their spirits. Instead, it was to teach them, to improve their breathing style further. After half an hour of non-stop sparring, the 5 slayers were visibly exhausted. Their hands trembled as they gripped the wooden swords, sweat streaming down their faces. Each breath was heavy as if they might collapse at any moment. Noticing their condition, Ryu nodded and said, "All right, we'll stop here. Rest up and eat something. Next, we'll move on to physical and reaction training." Hearing his words, the 5 of them froze in disbelief as they all thought, "Can we even survive the day? Look at their miserable appearance. Pitiful. They remind us of our own early days." Ryu glanced over at Haruka, who was giggling and making comments to Tatsuya about the exhausted demon slayers. "Haruka, come here," Ryu suddenly called out, his tone sharp. "It's time for your training. Start with frog jumps for an hour. And you too, Tatsuya." Haruka's eyes widened in disbelief. "What?" she blurted out, disbelief clear in her voice. Tatsuya shot her a glare, muttering in frustration, "Haruka, this is all your fault. Couldn't you just stay quiet? I shouldn't have stood anywhere near you." The next day, Ryu awoke to the familiar sound of his Kasugai crow calling his name, its voice urgent. Perched on the windowsill, the crow delivered a piece of unexpected news. "Caw! Caw! Ryu, the swordsmith village was attacked by 2 upper moons. There were casualties, but the demons were killed by the combined efforts of the Mist Hashira, Love Hashira, Tanjiro, and Jinya. Hearing the news, Ryu's eyes sharpened. He was baffled as the battle had taken place without him being informed. It struck him as odd why hadn't he been summoned or notified beforehand. His brows furrowed as he ran through the possibilities. There were only two plausible reasons. First, Tanjiro wasn't going on any mission, so they didn't take it seriously. Second, Yubayashiki must have believed the swordsmith village was safe with at least one Hashira constantly stationed nearby. Ryu sighed. Fate is really wonderful. It will eventually lead you to its destination, no matter the change. Even with the changes that had occurred in the timeline, the world was finding a way to correct itself, returning to its usual flow of events. Though the Demon Slayer Corps had secured another significant victory by eliminating 2 more Upper Moon demons, the final confrontation was drawing near, especially with Nezuko withstanding the sunlight. Muzan would definitely come with full force to obtain Nezuko. There was no stopping it now and the final battle was inevitable. Chapter 62, Hashira Meeting. The 4 Earth-human Zeros, Moonshadow, Raiden, and Ignis gathered in a quiet restaurant in Tokyo. It had been 2 months since their last meeting, each having gone their separate ways to gather information. As they sat down and ordered their meals, the talk turned to the matters at hand. Moonshadow was the first to speak, her voice soft but clear. I followed Tanjiro into the swordsmith village. Though there were a few changes, most things played out according to the original timeline. The 2 Upper Moon demons attacked, and Demon Nezuko conquered the sun. Muzan should be aware of it by now. With her ability Moonshadow and powerful stealth skills, it wasn't difficult to follow humans. Unlike demons, she can follow them during the daytime without any issue. Zeros leaned forward as he spoke. I joined the Demon Slayer Corps to gather information on Anomaly Ryu. He's considered a legend among the people of the Demon Slayer Corps. There's no doubt about his strength, having killed Akaza and Jayataro, 2 Upper Moon demons. I've pinpointed a potential location for the nature manor where he resides. We could use that as leverage to join the demon's side when required. Raiden and Ignis exchanged glances before shaking their heads. Raiden spoke. We couldn't find anything on Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo or Doma. If we inquire further, we'll draw attention from both the demons and the Demon Slayer Corps. Zeros spoke. No problem, we expected this. Let's stick to the original plan, follow the Demon Slayer Kaigaku. In the original timeline, he crossed paths with Upper Moon 1 and became a demon. If nothing goes wrong, we'll meet Kokushibo if we follow him. We can't approach the demon as a group of 4. I'll make contact alone and offer to become a demon, saying we've discovered the existence of demons and seek immortality and otherworldly strength. Once I display some of my strength, he'll definitely recruit me. He paused before continuing. Once I'm a demon, I'll bring the 3 of you in. With Muzan occupied with finding Nezuko, the Yubayashiki family, and the Demon Slayer Corps, he won't pay much attention to us. With the power of a demon, blood demon arts, and our own abilities, we'll be able to take on the Anomaly Ryu if we strategize correctly. The group exchanged glances, each giving a small nod of approval. They understood the risks of becoming demons, but none of them were afraid. The reason for their confidence lies in the fact that their origins and memories of Earth are guarded by the world system. Not even Muzan could uncover their true identities, even if they become demons. This protection is a basic protection given by Earth's will, ensuring the original worlds don't spiral into chaos upon learning their situation. It's also the reason that when they descend into a fictional world, they are given new identities, complete with fabricated childhood memories provided by the world system. This helps them blend seamlessly into the world. After finishing their food, the 4 left the restaurant, determining their next course of action. The next morning, Ryu received a letter from Tamayo about her recent discoveries and thanked him for providing the blood of Upper Moon demon Akaza, which had a high concentration of Muzan's blood. She explained her analysis. Nezuko's blood is changing rapidly and had the potential to conquer the sun. And, it may happen very soon. She urged Ryu to keep Nezuko hidden from Demon's sight as there's a possibility Muzan will come to find out about her through demon blood connection. If Muzan discovers her trait, it would spell disaster and there's no telling what he would do to get her. Reading her letter, Ryu shook his head and wrote his response. You're too late, Tamayo. Nezuko has already conquered the sun. Muzan knows about it. You know what this means, the battle between humans and demons is coming. Humanity needs your help, Tamayo. It's time for you to come to the other side. If you combine your knowledge with Shinobu, who has mastery in the medical and pharmaceutical fields, you could make significant progress in your research. With your connection to Tanjiro, the Demon Slayer Corps may already know your existence, they will eventually discover your location and invite you to join them. When that happens, accept it. If they don't reach out soon, I'll personally explain your situation to Yubashiki. Don't worry about your safety, no one will do anything to you with me here. After sending the letter, Ryu set off from the nature manor to attend the emergency Hashira meeting summoned by the Yubashiki family. Next morning, the Hashira gathered at one of the Yubashiki mansions for the meeting. When Ryu arrived, he saw Kanae, Jiu, Mitsurai, Muichiro, Gyume, Kyojuro, and Tenjin already present. Sanamai and Obanai were the only ones missing. A few minutes later, Sanamai and Obanai arrived. So, we're the last ones, hey. Sanamai muttered, sitting down casually, unfazed by his lateness. Sorry for keeping you all waiting, Obanai apologized, taking his seat. No problem. Well done on your mission. Gyume commended them for their efforts. Once settled, Sanamai turned his gaze to Mitsurai and Muichiro. So, you two really fought upper moons? For real? Mitsurai nodded enthusiastically. Yup. They were incredibly strong. I thought I was done for, but somehow we managed. Muichiro simply nodded, yes. Sanamai sighed in frustration, I'm jealous. Why haven't I encountered any upper moons? It feels like almost everyone's run into one, Obanai added, before asking, are you both alright? How are your injuries? Mitsurai's face brightened, oh. I'm much better now, thank you for asking. Her cheeks flushed slightly, her heart fluttering. He's worried about me, she thought. Muichiro, in his usual calm tone, responded, I'm better, but I haven't fully healed yet. With his hands gently clasped together as though in prayer, Gyume said. I'm relieved nothing happened to you both, even though you encountered the upper moons. Kanae, noticing their conditions, added, it's good to see you both recovering well, but it seems your wounds healed quickly. It's abnormal. Shinobu is concerned about the unusual rate of recovery. If you feel anything off, consult with her immediately. Both of them nodded. Earth Human Status Panels. Name, Ciros Or. Physique, Human, Normal. Rank, 2-star Silver Master. Talent Skill. Force, 2-star Silver / 10-star Gold, Upper Limit. Equipment, Lightsaber. Mission tab, Primary Mission. Kill Anomaly Ryu. Status, Incomplete. Reward, Sun Breathing and Superhuman Physique. Name, Moon Shadow. Physique, Human. Rank, 2-star Silver Master. Talent Skill, Moon Shadow, Invisibility, 2-star Silver / 10-star Gold. Equipment, Find Spell Scroll. Name, Raiden. Physique, Human, Normal. Rank, 1-star Silver Master. Talent Skill, Thunder Fist, 1-star Silver / 10-star Silver. Equipment, Cleansing Potion. Name, Ignis. Physique, Human, Normal. Rank, 1-star Silver Master. Talent Skill, Fire Bending, 1-star Silver / 10-star Gold. Equipment, Cleansing Potion. Chapter 63, Hashira Training. The meeting began with the arrival of Amina Yubashiki, Kagaya's wife, accompanied by 2 of their children. She bowed deeply before addressing the gathered Hashira. In today's Hashira meeting, I am here on behalf of Kagaya Yubashiki. I deeply apologize for the fact that Master Kagaya will no longer be able to appear before you due to his worsening health. As you are all aware, a demon who can withstand sunlight has now emerged, Nezuko Kamatu. Muzan will definitely come for her, trying to conquer the sun too. A large-scale war is now unavoidable. Amina then turned her gaze toward Mitsurai and Muichiro, her expression calm and inquisitive. During your battles with the upper moons, I was told that both of you manifested unique marks on your bodies. I would like to hear more about them. Under what circumstances did these marks appear? Is there any way to awaken them? Unlike Mitsurai's blunder of attempting to describe her experience with a string of vague gestures and sounds, Muichiro calmly recounted how his demon slayer mark awakened in detail during a near-death struggle. After that, the Hashira meeting went as happened in the original timeline, with Amina explaining the origin and history of demon slayer marks. Ryu remained silent throughout the meeting, just sitting there absent-mindedly without even listening to the conversation. Soon, the Hashira meeting ended, and Amina Yubayashiki bowed once more before leaving with her children. Just as the Hashira were preparing to leave, Gyume stepped forward and stopped them, proposing his Hashira training plan to prepare the core members for the upcoming battle. Everyone then spent another hour discussing the specifics of the training program, working out the schedule, time periods, and dates. Each Hashira would take charge of a particular training session, with Ryu overseeing reaction and perception training. After the meeting, Ryu and Kanae left the Yubayashiki mansion and walked side by side. Kanae glanced at Ryu, who was quiet. She asked, "Ryu, why are you so absent-minded today? Is something bothering you?" "It's nothing," Ryu shook his head. He couldn't tell her that he was preoccupied with thoughts about the Earth humans. They somewhat bother him. In fact, he wanted to explain about them, but with the looming threat of Muzan, he didn't want to burden her with even more worries. Kanae smiled softly and said, "To be honest, I think you're the only one who stands a real chance against Muzan. And, I believe you. But, if something's bothering you, it may affect everyone." Ryu chuckled, seeing she had misunderstood. He let out an exaggerated sigh and said, "All right, I'll tell you the truth. I've been thinking hard about what name we should give our children when they're born in the future. Will it be a boy or a girl? Or will it be twins?" Hearing the words, Kanae paused in her tracks, then shot Ryu a glare before shaking her head. "For a moment, I thought he was genuinely bothered. No. He's definitely worried about something, but he's covering it up by teasing me." Kanae sighed as she turned her head to look at the horizon. "If you don't want to tell me, then so be it." It's getting harder to fool her, Ryu thought before saying aloud, "You'll find out in due time. But rest assured, it's not about Muzan. He doesn't worry me." It was those very words that bothered Kanae even more. What could possibly be more concerning than Muzan, the progenitor of all demons? 3 days after the emergency Hashira meeting, demon slayers began arriving at Ryu's nature manor for their training, in batches with a 3-day gap between each. On the first day, 25 people arrived, standing in a 5x5 formation. Ryu stood before them, while Tatsuya, Haruka, Yui, and Hina stood on the sides. "Under my guidance, you'll improve your reaction and perception. My training lasts 3 days. Push yourselves and grow as much as you can," Ryu instructed. He then divided the group of 25 into 2 teams. Each group formed a circle with a ball soaked in water in their hand, which was heavy and painful to be hit by. In the center of the circle stood several large poles that obstructed their vision to some extent. The play was simple: one person would throw the ball, and another had to catch it. However, before catching the incoming ball, they had to throw the ball they were holding. On top of this, no one was allowed to stand without a ball for more than 4 consecutive throws. If they did, the 4th person to throw the ball would face the punishment. Anyone who fails to catch or throw correctly also faces punishment. As for the punishment, they had to stand in the center while everyone tossed balls at them. If 3 balls hit them, they were out and had to repeat the routine until they succeeded. At first, the players thought it was all fun and games. But once they began, they quickly realized how challenging it was. They had to stay completely focused, reacting in an instant, without allowing any distractions, not even for a fraction of a second. Missing a catch or failing to throw the ball accurately became common mistakes, especially with the large poles blocking their vision. On top of that, they had to constantly keep an eye on the person who was without a ball, as they had to throw him the ball within 4 throws. The punishment was no joke either. Getting hit by the water-soaked ball felt like being struck by a rock, leaving painful bruises. And that was just the beginning. Next came the dodgeball game, followed by an even tougher training where rocks were thrown at high speed, forcing them to react and dodge quickly. The training was relentless, pushing everyone's reaction to the brink, and sharpening their natural reflex. With Ryu, Tatsuya, and Haruka overseeing the training, the slayers couldn't cheat, even if they wanted to. The day went on like this, and by the end, the slayers collapsed to the ground, mentally drained despite their physical strength. After the training, the slayers were treated to full meals in a relaxing bath, allowing them to recover from the mental exhaustion with a good amount of rest. The next day, Ryu gathered the demon slayers, who were now in high spirits, and introduced the next phase of their training, perception. Chapter 64, Hashira Training, 2. Once the demon slayers gathered in the training ground, Ryu introduced the next phase of their training, perception. Now that you've honed your reaction, it's time to work on perception. In battle, sensing the slightest sound, movement, or change in the air can be the difference between life and death. You need to react before your eyes even register what's happening. To do that, you must perceive your surroundings instinctively. He gestured toward a pile of black cloth on a nearby table. For this exercise, you'll be blindfolded. You'll have to rely on your hearing and other senses to react. Under Ryu's instruction, the slayers paired up into teams of 2. One person was blindfolded, while the other wielded a wooden sword that Ryu had specially modified. The wooden swords had small holes in them, causing a distinct sound with every swing. This allowed the blindfolded person to use their sense of hearing to make judgments and react accordingly. The sudden darkness forced them to rely on their senses. As demon slayers with breathing techniques and enhanced strength, they were able to react to slight changes in sound or movement. Some slayers adapted quickly, able to react to their partner's movements with impressive reaction, while others struggled to adapt. As Ryu moved around the training field, he spoke, "When you lose one sense, the others sharpen. Use that to your advantage. Those of you blindfolded are responsible for dodging, while the sword wielder is responsible for swinging the wooden sword. Don't use any breathing style, just basic sword moves. Now, start." Under his instruction, the sword wielders began slowly, allowing the blindfolded slayers time to adjust to the darkness. After about 10 minutes, the pace intensified, forcing quicker responses and reactions. The training was effective, and the improvement was visible to the naked eye. Tatsuya, overseeing the training, commented, "Ryu-san's reaction and perception training is unique. If they continue practicing this even after they leave here, they'll improve significantly." Indeed. Haruka nodded in agreement. Unlike the slayers who came solely for reaction and perception training, Ryu trained the two in every aspect: physical training, swordsmanship, meditation, flexibility, reaction, perception, and many more. It's also one of the reasons why their strength has improved significantly in such a short period. Now, they have the strength and skill to fight and even kill demons with the strength of the lower moons. After an hour, the demon slayers switched roles. Those who were blindfolded now wielded the swords, while the sword swingers donned the blindfolds. The longer the training continued, the more the slayers became sensitive to their surroundings. Deprived of sight, they were forced to rely on their other senses, sharpening their ability to perceive subtle changes. By the end of the day, though mentally exhausted, they had shown noticeable improvements in both reaction and perception. Ryu was satisfied with their progress, though it was just small steps. No drastic changes could happen in just a day or two, it takes time. But for now, it's enough. The third day came, and Ryu introduced the final training. "Today, we combine reaction and perception. You'll stay blindfolded, but this time, you'll dodge balls thrown at you." Thanks to the first 2 days of training, the slayers, with their sharpened reaction and perception, were able to react even with their blindfolds on. With the fast approaching battle against Muzan, every skill and advantage would be crucial. It may save their lives. Within the 3 days of training, Ryu pushed them as far as he could. And, it's what he can do in a short span of 3 days. The next day, a fresh batch of slayers arrived, ready for their own training session. A week later, Ryu received a message from Tamayo saying that she had been officially invited to join the Demon Slayer Corps as he guest. As he read through the message, she mentioned some key details about what they were doing. Tamayo was now working closely with Shinobu at a secret location, experimenting and developing drugs that may assist the Corps in the coming battle against Muzan. With Shinobu's expertise in poisons, medicine, and pharmacology, paired with Tamayo's extensive knowledge of demons and their physiology, the research was progressing faster than either of them expected. Tamayo praised Shinobu, calling her a genius in the field of poison and medicine. With Shinobu's help, she had been able to make progress on things that had troubled her for a long time. With their combined efforts, they were on the verge of developing a drug that could turn demons back into humans. Along with other drugs, it would help the Slayers fight against Muzan. Nice, Ryu thought to himself. Everything's going according to plan. Standing at the edge of the training field, Ryu watched the Slayers collapse to the ground mentally exhausted, after an intense day of training. The setting sun bathed the horizon in a warm glow, casting long shadows across the field. Ryu's eyes followed the fading sunlight, and thought, it's time for me to go. After 3 hours of running, Ryu arrived at a clearing in the forest. Even before reaching the spot, the faint sound of clashing blades echoed, signaling the intensity of the duel between two swordsmen. The moonlight illuminated the clearing, casting a silvery glow on the battlefield where Kyojuro and Tenjin were locked in a fierce battle, with wooden swords in their hands. Upon his arrival, Ryu was greeted by this sight as sword energies flew with every impact, each clash sending ripples through the night air. Bang! The sheer force of their collision generated shockwaves that briefly stirred the air around them. It was a brilliant display of skill and power. You're good, Kyojuro. Your moves are flashier than before. Seems like you've honed up after fighting Upper Moon 3, Tenjin remarked, with a flashy smile on his face. Kyojuro laughed heartily with a brilliant look. Ha ha ha. I've indeed improved, but against the demons like Upper Moons, it's still not enough. In a flash, Ryu appeared beside Kanae and Gyume, who were quietly observing the battle from the sides. He glanced at them and said, "You two arrived earlier than yesterday. Namu Amida Butsu." With his hands clasped in a praying gesture, Gyume commented. "We need to make the most of this precious time and push ourselves further. Only with strength can we defeat the strong demons and Muzan." Chapter 65, Clash of the Hashira. Ryu stood at the center, gripping a wooden bukin in his hand. Across from him, 3 Hashira Kyojuro, Tenjin and Gyume readied themselves for the upcoming fight. Though this was a training session, Kanae could tell the air was thick with tension, as she watched from the sidelines. The 3 Hashira knew very well of Ryu's immense strength and his mastery over his breathing style. They weren't taking this lightly, they were serious. This wasn't their first time facing Ryu, as they had been training together for the past week. However, unlike previous days when they fought him one-on-one, today they were fighting as a group, aiming to improve their cooperation. "Let's begin. Attack me as if you are facing an Upper Moon demon or Muzan himself. Don't worry about injuring me, with your strength, you won't be able to," Ryu said calmly, his eyes scanning the 3 of them. Kyojuro, always brimming with spirited enthusiasm, stepped forward, tightening his grip on his wooden sword. "I won't hold back, Ryu." "You shouldn't," Ryu chuckled. Tenjin spun his dual wooden blades effortlessly, a grin on his face. "This is going to be flashy." But his eyes betrayed his seriousness as he knew Ryu's strength well. Gyume simply nodded, his grip firm on the wooden weapon resembling a spiked flail and axe. Despite his blindness, his heightened sense of hearing is at the level of superhuman. Kyojuro took the initiative, dashing forward with his first form, Unknowing Fire. At a blinding speed he came at Ryu and unleashed a powerful downward strike, his form flawless bearing his entire strength. Bang! Ryu met Kyojuro's attack head-on, his wooden blade blocking the strike with ease. The clash of wood reverberated across the field as a gust of wind pushed everything aside from the impact. Kyojuro pressed forward, but Ryu's blade remained unmoved. With slight force, Ryu pushed back, sending Kyojuro stumbling back. At that exact moment, Tenjin rushed in, his dual wooden blades whirled through the air with a sharp whoosh. 5th form, String Performance. His blades slashed at high speed, almost invisible to the naked eye. But, Ryu parried each attack with precision, his bukin seemingly in multiple places at once. Suddenly, Ryu closed the distance in a flash and delivered a swift kick, sending Tenjin flying backward. At the same time, he dodged his head to the side, evading Gyume's spiked flail that came at him from his blind spot, the force of the strike ruffling his hair. Without giving him a moment to breathe, Kyojuro was back again with another passionate strike. 2nd form, Rising Scorching Sun. His sword arced upward, aimed directly at Ryu's chest with blazing speed. Ryu sidestepped casually and, with a swift back kick, struck Tenjin, who had silently sneaked behind him, ready to strike. At the same time, Ryu's bukin came down with force, slamming into Kyojuro's wooden sword, shattering it, and sending him skidding across the ground. Without wasting a single movement, his bukin turned into a blur and intercepted Gyume's spiked flail, the force behind the strike forcing him to skid back. "What strength, Gyume-san! You have incredible physical power," Ryu praised, observing him through his transparent world. "I'm fortunate I was born with strength beyond that of ordinary people." Gyume shook his head. The 3 Hashira once again attacked Ryu, coordinating with each other in perfect unison. The battlefield once again transformed into a storm of invisible slashes and shockwaves that tore through the training grounds. Every swing of their wooden weapons left small craters in the ground, a testament to the immense power they wielded. Ryu stood in the eye of the storm of sword attacks, calm and composed. His wooden bukin moved with effortless precision, deflecting every attack that came his way. It was as if he could see their moves before they even made them. No matter how fast Kyojuro attacked, how unpredictable and swift Tenjin's strikes were, or how strong Chiyome's blows dropped, Ryu countered them all with ease. The fight went on for half an hour, and the three Hashira, despite their combined efforts, couldn't overwhelm Ryu. It wasn't that they weren't fighting well, but Ryu's strength and skill were simply on another level. The three Hashira stood panting, sweat dripping from their foreheads. Ryu, on the other hand, remained calm, not a single bead of sweat on his brow. You've all improved greatly in 1 week, and your coordination is flawless, Ryu said with a simple nod. But we still couldn't land a hit on you, Chiyome admitted, then added, thank you for coming here and guiding us. I'm truly grateful. Your transparent world ability is too overpowered. You can predict our movements just by seeing our breathing. Why can't we awaken it? You said it would happen with a near-death battle, but we haven't awakened after being abused by you for a week. Tenjin complained. What we are doing is not a near-death battle. You know I won't kill you, so your mind knows nothing will happen. Ryu said. I agree. When I was fighting with you, I didn't feel the same intensity I experienced against that upper moon demon, Kyojuro said. Indeed. Tenjin nodded and said, I heard Obanai, Sanamai and Muchiro were training the same way we are. But since their location is far from us, we can't train together. If they continue improving their strength, it doesn't matter where they train, Kanae spoke in her usual gentle tone. Anyway, this is the last day. After today, I have other tasks to handle, so I won't have much free time to come here and train with you all. Ryu shook his head. He was entrusted by Kagaya to investigate a certain location in Tokyo. It's a place where many people have gone missing. Not just 10 or 20, over 100 people have disappeared without a trace. Yubayashiki thinks it might be connected to a castle-like structure that Sanamai and Obanai encountered during their mission a few days ago. Its sudden appearance and disappearance worries the Yubayashiki. Well, it seems it's time for us to head out, Kyojuro said, glancing at the horizon. We've got a batch of core members to train. Only if I leave now, I will reach by sunrise. Yeah, they need a lot of physical training. They are weak as hell. They won't last long against slightly stronger demons. Gotta make sure they can at least survive what's coming. Tenjin said. Kanae smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. As Hashira, it's our responsibility to guide them. After that, Kyojuro and Tenjin departed, while Ryu bid farewell to Kanae. Take care, Kanae. As Kanae's figure disappeared from view, Ryu turned to Chiyome. Do you want to speak with me, Chiyome-san? He asked. Chapter 66, Ambition. Yes, Chiyome replied, his tone solemn. He began, Ryu, Oyakata-sama has a plan. He intends to use him as bait, he believes Muzan will come for him. And, his intuitions are mostly right. I believe Muzan is doing everything in his power to find the location of Nezuko and the Demon Slayer's core. I'm not worried about Nezuko as her location is so well hidden that even I don't know anything. But it won't be long before Muzan discovers some of our locations. At that moment, Ryu interjected, you want me to remain silent until Muzan discovers Yubayashiki's residence? Yes, that's my request, Chiyome replied. Unlike the others, I know the demon's movements can't be hidden from you. I understand. Thank you, Chiyome said with a nod. Ryu remained silent for a moment before asking, why did you tell me this? I assume you haven't shared this plan with anyone else. They're emotionally attached, Chiyome responded. If they knew Oyakata-sama's decision, they wouldn't agree, or worse, they might act rashly. Oyakata-sama believes you're different. You're not emotionally attached, and you'll make the decisions needed to eradicate the demons and kill Muzan Kibutsuji even if someone stops you. Indeed. Muzan is the priority. Even if some innocents die in the process, I'll do it. If we don't kill him, countless more will die, who knows for how many years, Ryu said, his tone serious. And if he conquers the sun, the world will be plunged into chaos. I'll keep you informed of any developments, especially if Muzan makes a move. I hope you kill him, you have the strength, Chiyome stated. Definitely. Ryu nodded. The next night, Ryu arrived in one of the regions within Tokyo, and the moment he stepped foot in the town, he knew he arrived at the right place. The streets were eerily quiet, with not a single living in sight. There wasn't even the smell of blood, only an unnatural silence. Activating his nature mode, Ryu's senses expanded, covering the entire town. His heightened perception scanned every street, and every house, but there were no signs of life. The weird silence of the town confirmed that something terrible had happened, something only Muzan could do. Muzan Kibutsuji. Ryu muttered to himself, his gaze slightly cold. He's transported the entire town. There must have been more than 1,000 people here, and now they're all gone. If I'm wrong, he should have turned them into demons. Even though, in his heart, he wants to kill Muzan even if it means sacrificing some innocent people, seeing nearly 1,000 people disappear and lose their lives, fueled his anger. Ryu's eyes narrowed as his senses already picked up some demon eyes. Though hidden, he could feel their presence, scattered around the town, watching him from the shadows. He resisted his urge to destroy them all. He then conveyed a message to Yabayashiki, reporting what he had discovered. Even with his overwhelming strength, Ryu knew he could do nothing when it came to the Infinity Castle. It was a place that existed in another space. Inside the Infinity Castle, the Biwa demon sat cross-legged on a wooden floor. Twing! Her fingers drummed against the strings as her blood demon art tirelessly searched the location of Yabayashiki and Nezuko, scanning the countless regions of Japan. Suddenly, her fingers stopped playing the biwa. She opened her mouth and spoke softly, "Muzan-sama, the Hashira who killed Akaza has arrived in the town." Muzan, who had been quietly reading a book, closed it and turned his gaze to Nakame. "Shall I teleport him here?" The biwa demon continued. "He's alone, without support. I could easily kill him within the Infinity Castle." Muzan's demonic eyes flickered as he considered, but after a moment, he shook his head. "No need. Our focus is Nezuko and Yabayashiki. Once we find the demon immune to sunlight, I will deal with him myself. I don't want to alert Yabayashiki." Nakame bowed her head, as her fingers once again began to play the strings of her biwa. A few days passed as Ryu searched for the location of the Infinity Castle within the Tokyo region, but he returned to the Nature Manor without any leads. Somewhere in the streets, a team of demon slayers had met their demise. The area was now a scene of horror, with bodies scattered across the street, their severed limbs painting the streets crimson. Among the fallen, only one remained alive, Kaigaku kneeling in front of Kokushibo, the Upper Moon One. His eyes trembled in fear as he looked up at the towering figure. Kokushibo's deep, commanding voice echoed through the night. "Drink this without spilling a drop of blood. If you spill even a single drop, I will kill you." Kaigaku's hands shook as he accepted the blood, carefully raising it to his lips to drink. As he drank, he felt his throat constricting as the potent demonic power coursed through his body. His veins bulged, and his skin felt as though it was tearing apart from the inside. As Kaigaku struggled through the demon transformation, he could feel a new, terrifying strength taking over. At that same moment, Kokushibo's senses sharpened. His 6 eyes scanned the surroundings, locking onto a certain spot. His calm but strong voice echoed, "Come out." From the shadows, a figure emerged. The man stepped into the light with a confident posture, a faint smile on his lips. "As expected of the Upper Moon One, your senses are sharp," the man said, his tone casual. Kokushibo's eyes narrowed as he looked at the appearance of a human. "A human? You don't look like a demon slayer, but your strength is far from ordinary," he remarked, using his transparent world to assess the human. His presence radiated a strange power, different from anything Kokushibo had encountered in the world. The man standing before Kokushibo was none other than Siros, or the Earth Human. Siros looked at Kokushibo without fear and spoke, "I'm not a demon slayer, but I've come here for something interesting." Kokushibo's gripped his blade and asked, "What is it?" If what the human says doesn't pique his interest, he plans to kill him on the spot. "I want to become a demon," Siros directly stated his purpose. For a moment, silence filled the streets. Kokushibo studied Siros, his gaze filled with amusement and curiosity. "You wish to become a demon?" Kokushibo asked in a deep voice. "Do you understand what you are asking for, human?" Siros nodded, "I understand very well. Strength, immortality and the power to surpass humans' limits. That's what I seek." His tone was firm, filled with ambition. Hearing his answer, Kokushibo felt a strange sense of familiarity. It was as if he were looking at his younger self, the same burning ambition he had when he decided to side with Muzan all those years ago. Chapter 67, Siros vs Kokushibo. "I don't mind sharing his blood with you, but first, prove that you're worthy and capable," Kokushibo said, pointing his katana at Zero's. Of course, Zero's responded, extending his arm. Instantly, a discarded Nichiren blade lying on the ground flashed into his hand, summoned by his force power. "Oh, so you wield a strange power," Kokushibo remarked, surprised at Zero's supernatural ability. "But it won't be enough to face me, human." In the blink of an eye, Kokushibo's form blurred, and he appeared before Zero's. He raised his sword, cutting through the air in front of him in a casual manner. It was a simple strike, without any blood demon art. Clang! Zero's raised his left arm, and an invisible barrier arose in an instant, blocking the blade. Sparks flew as Kokushibo's katana collided with the invisible force shield, but Zero's could feel his force barrier struggling under the demon's strength. He's strong. His strength should be around level 10 Silver Master by Earth's ranking system. Zero's thought, analyzing Kokushibo's strength. With a grunt, Zero's summoned more of his power, releasing a burst of force energy that shoved Kokushibo back several feet. The upper moon remained steady, his expression unchanged, but his eyes narrowed. "Impressive," Kokushibo said in his usual calm tone, but he was shocked in his heart. "It's like a blood demon art, but how can a human wield such a power?" Zero's was no ordinary human. As someone whose force ability had reached the 2-star silver level, his strength and speed far surpassed that of ordinary humans, placing him on par with some upper moon demons in pure physical strength. Without hesitation, Kokushibo unleashed his blood demon art. Second form, Pearl Flower Moon Gazing, with the swing of his sword, 3 crescent-shaped slashes, accompanied by a multitude of smaller crescent moon blades, sliced through the air toward Zero's. In response, Zero's effortlessly countered the incoming attacks, his sword moved like a blur, slicing through the crescent moon blades with ease, showcasing his expert swordsmanship, sharpened during his time as a Jedi in the Star Wars universe. The moon blades scattered in all directions as Zero's sword danced in his hands. He pushed forward with strength and speed, closing the gap between him and Kokushibo in a flash. Upon reaching him, he slashed at Kokushibo. Kokushibo met the strike head-on, his katana blocking the attack with an explosive clash. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the air, the ground beneath them cracking under the pressure of their combined strength. Zero's gritted his teeth, pouring more power into the strike. But he couldn't overwhelm Kokushibo with just strength. After a moment, they both separated. "You are worthy enough for me to unleash my true strength," Kokushibo declared. Though he said that, in his heart, Kokushibo considered the possibility of killing or capturing Zero's, to present him to Muzan. A human with such extraordinary abilities is too special in his eyes. But, another thought crossed his mind. If this human became a demon, he would ultimately serve Muzan. Such a powerful human could prove useful in the battles and bring his full potential as a demon. He could tell, that even though the human possess an extraordinary ability, it isn't strong enough to hurt him. Let's test his limit. In an instant, Kokushibo vanished from Zero's sight, reappearing behind him with terrifying speed. His katana descended in a deadly arc, targeting Zero's back. But Zero's, sensing the attack, swiftly spun around and pushed his hand outward with a burst of force energy. The power of the force pushed Kokushibo to take a few steps back. Kokushibo regained his balance, his expression unchanged. Raising his demonic katana, he said, "Show me your full strength, human." Zero's obliged. With a surge of speed, enhanced by the force, he dashed toward Kokushibo, his blade flashing as he unleashed a flurry of strikes. Each swing of his sword was precise and filled with power. Kokushibo parried with ease as their blades met in a storm of clashes. But as the battle raged on, Zero's attacks grew faster, and more aggressive, each movement honed by the countless battles he had fought in the Star Wars universe. Still, he could only inflict minor cuts on Kokushibo, injuries that healed instantly, as if they had never happened. Upper Moon 1 is truly formidable. There's no way I can defeat him without using my lightsaber, but I can't reveal all my cards yet. Zero's thought. Before coming here, they planned for every possible outcome of this encounter. Even now, Moon Shadow is hiding in the vicinity, using her exceptional stealth skills to remain undetected. If the situation took a turn for the worse, their plan was either to flee or, as a last resort, attempt to kill Upper Moon 1. To Zero's surprise, things were progressing just as he had expected. "You are good," Kokushibo said, stopping his attacks. "I will grant your wish, but first, tell me about your special abilities." Zero's nodded. Aside from strength and immortality, there's a reason why I want to become a demon. His next words were carefully prepared to deceive. You should have heard of the nature Hashira, Ryu, right? Siros asked, knowing that if he wanted Kokushibo to believe his story, it had to be convincing. And as he thought, at the mention of Ryu's name, Kokushibo's eyes narrowed. Without waiting for a response, Siros continued, there's a reason he's so strong. He's special, like me. A traitor to our clan, he killed many of our people and stole some of our secrets. He grew powerful before we could find his location as he changed his name and hid himself in the Demon Slayer Corps. My life purpose is to find and kill him, but with my current strength, that's impossible. By becoming a demon, I will gain the power necessary to defeat him. As for the special ability, I can't say much because it's something we're born with. Only 5 people possess it, including myself and Ryu. Hearing the words, Kokushibo was silent for a moment. He didn't care whether what the human said was true or false. Once he became a demon, his secrets couldn't be hidden from Muzan's eyes. Siros was aware of this risk, but he wasn't too bothered by this, because his force power could shield the mind from Muzan reading his memories. They were taking significant risks not for the system rewards, but to eliminate the anomaly. They understood the danger the anomalies posed to the Earth. Chapter 68, Here Comes Muzan. A few days passed, and around evening, Ryu and Jiume arrived at a secluded location deep within the forest. Hidden away, a wooden house stood amidst a sea of wisteria flowers, their blossoms gently swaying in the breeze. Inside the house were Tamayo, Yoshiro, and Shinobu. Long time no see, Tamayo-san, Ryu greeted with a smile. His gaze then shifted to Shinobu, who looked visibly worn out. How are you, Shinobu? It seems you've been busy these past few days. I'm good, Ryu-san, Shinobu replied. I'll feel better after some rest, but I couldn't afford to miss this opportunity to defeat Muzan. Ryu nodded, understanding her. At that moment, Jiume suddenly asked. You already know about Tamayo? Yes. I met her during a mission. Since their goal is also to eliminate Muzan, I knew she'd be a valuable ally. I didn't report it to the Demon Slayer Corps because I know how the others will react. Ryu responded. I understand. Jiume said. Turning to Tamayo, Ryu asked, have you developed the drug? Yes, Tamayo replied softly, thanks to Shinobu-san, we developed it. The effect is better than I thought. She then explained the details of the anti-kibutsuji drug. It's a unique, potent formula designed specifically to weaken Muzan kibutsuji. The drug works in stages, but it requires time to take full effect. Ryu's expression remained calm and asked, how much time are we talking about? Tamayo thought for a moment and said, first, Muzan must absorb the drug. Once he does, the first stage human conversion will start. He will attempt to neutralize this stage, but once he does, the next phases will activate. So, the first stage acts as a bait. Ryu asked. Yes, Tamayo confirmed. Even if he doesn't manage to nullify it, the other stages will trigger in order. However, the key to this method is ensuring Muzan absorbs the drug. But, it won't be easy to get near him and inject this drug into his body. It's nearly impossible. Jiume, who had been silent up until now, spoke up. Yubayashiki-sama has already made his arrangements. According to him, Muzan will come to him tonight. Ryu crossed his arms and said. Indeed. I noticed several demon eyes monitoring my manor yesterday. If you can create a distraction, I have a plan to inject the drug into Muzan. With Yoshiro's blood demon art, we can make it work, Tamayo said, her eyes sharp with determination. Tamayo-sama. Yoshiro murmured softly, his eyes filled with concern as he glanced at her. Hearing their conversation, Shinobu had a worried look and looked at Ryu. So, it's happening tonight? Ryu-san, my sister. Don't worry, Shinobu Ryu said and reassured her. Kanae is strong. Even if she faces an upper moon, she won't be easily defeated. And as for Muzan, leave him to me. He's my responsibility. Midnight arrived, and Muzan Kibutsuji's figure silently walked into the Yubayashiki mansion. Despite the bandages covering Kagaya's face, leaving only his mouth and nose visible, he could sense Muzan's presence. This is our first meeting, right, Kibutsuji Muzan? Kagaya's voice was calm, showing no fear. Muzan smiled, eyeing Kagaya. What a hideous face you have, Yubayashiki. You finally came, Kagaya responded, unbothered by Muzan's insult. He gestured to his wife. Amine, describe him for me. Amine described Muzan's appearance. Once she finished, Kagaya spoke again. I knew you would personally come to kill me. I am disappointed, Yubayashiki. You reek of death, utterly disgraceful. Muzan's expression remained indifferent, but there was a hint of disgust as he took in his enemy's frail appearance. After that, their conversation played out as it did in the original timeline, with Kagaya calmly speaking and Muzan's irritation growing with every word. Finally, Muzan had enough. His eyes narrowed, and his fingernails turned into claws. Have you done talking? To be honest, I never expected you to listen this long. Thank you, Muzan. As Kagaya thanked him, Muzan was further annoyed by the dying man. At that same moment, the Kasugai crows flew through the night, frantically announcing an emergency summons. Across the region, the Hashira Sanamai, Obanai, Mitsurai, Muchiro, Kanae, Jiu, Kyojuro, Tenjin, and Tanjiro raced toward the Yubayashiki mansion, horrified that demons had infiltrated their stronghold and they were under attack. The forest blurred past them as they sprinted, led by their Kasugai crows. If they could just reach the mansion in time, they might be able to save the Yubayashiki family. However, just as the mansion came into view, a thunderous explosion occurred, stunning them. The Yubayashiki compound was engulfed in flames as a series of hidden explosives detonated, lighting up the night sky like a volcano eruption. The fireball rose high above the trees, triggering a shockwave filled with heat. Muzan, glaring through the flames, watched with cold expression as Kagaya and Amine embraced death together, their bodies consumed by the inferno of flames. The explosion tore through the compound, reducing it to rubble. The smell of burning flesh and blood filled the air, a cruel testament to Kagaya's sacrifice. From a distance, the Hashira froze, horror and disbelief etched on their faces. Tanjiro, sensitive to scents, was overwhelmed by the stench of explosives mixing with the burning scent of flesh and blood. The sky burned red as the flames climbed higher, and the Hashira were left standing on the edge of the mansion, witnessing the devastating scene unfolding before them. Dash! Thrown back by the blast, Muzan winced in agony as his entire body burned, showing his bones. Still burning, his body began to regenerate, his legs and arms slower than usual. Through broken skull teeth, Muzan spat, Yubu! Yashiki! That look on his face! Muzan recalled Kagaya Yubayashiki's final moments. With a Buddha-like smile he blew himself in an explosion, along with his wife and 2 children. I was mistaken. I underestimated him. I thought him to be weak, a frail human no different from the rest. But, he was beyond insane. I was expecting some kind of trap, but not to this extent. Muzan's thoughts sharpened as he examined the aftermath of the explosion. These explosives were filled with spikes to increase their lethality, designed to delay my regeneration as much as possible. Which means there's more to come. I sense people gathering here, probably the Hashira. But there's something else. That cunning man used himself as bait. His rage and hatred toward me coiled deeply in his heart like a serpent. Hiding such murderous intent at such a young age is astonishing. Just then, Muzan noticed something unusual around him. Small, red balls of flesh floated in the air, slowly drifting closer to him. His eyes narrowed. Seeds of flesh? A blood demon art. Before he could react, the seeds exploded, bursting into enormous thorns that shot out in every direction. The thorns pierced through Muzan's body, puncturing his head, limbs, and torso. The spikes expanded, branching out inside him, immobilizing him completely. I got caught. Whose blood demon art is this? Muzan's eyes widened in shock as he realized he couldn't move. No problem. I just need to absorb them. Shiek. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Muzan glanced down and was stunned to see Tamayo standing before him, her hand piercing through his flesh. Tamayo, why are you here? He snarled in confusion. She approached me using a blood demon art of concealment. What is her goal? What has she done? Muzan thought, noticing talismans tied around her wrists and body. So you absorbed my fist, Muzan. What do you think was inside my fist? It's a medicine to turn demons into humans. Can you feel it? Tamayo asked, feeling her fist absorbed by Muzan. No way such medicine exists. Muzan roared. I completed it, Tamayo said. In a sudden surge of anger, Muzan kicked her, sending Tamayo off balance. He followed up swiftly, piercing his thumb into her forehead. Your grudge is misplaced, Tamayo. You're the one responsible for killing and devouring your husband and children. At that moment, a flash of movement cut through the mess as Ryu's figure appeared beside Tamayo. With a strong push, he separated Tamayo from Muzan. Before Muzan could react, Ryu's Nichiren blade sliced cleanly through his neck, severing his head from his body. But he knew this was far from the end. Activating his transparent world, Ryu planned to destroy the 7 hearts and 4 remaining brains hidden within Muzan. Chapter 69, The Final Battle Begins. Black Blood Brambles. Muzan unleashed countless long, barbed tendrils with his head still severed. At the same moment, Gyume's figure materialized behind Muzan, hidden by the power of the concealment talismans. His spiked iron flail whirled at an astonishing speed before he sent it crashing into Muzan, shattering his severed head and pulverizing half of his torso. Nice attack, Gyume-san, Ryu acknowledged as he quickly scanned Muzan's body using his transparent world. Only 2 hearts and 1 brain remained active. Just then, the other Hashira arrived at the scene, their faces reflecting horror and worry as they took in the burning ruins of the Yubayashiki mansion and saw Ryu and Gyume fighting a man. 5th form, Lightning Storm. In a flash, Ryu blitzed toward Muzan, his Nichiren blade slicing through the blood tendrils like paper. He closed in on Muzan, his blade just inches away from landing a fatal blow targeting his other 2 hearts and brain, when the sound of a biwa resonated through the air. Suddenly, a human-like demon materialized next to Muzan, extending his hand. Blood Demon Art, Gravity Push. A tremendous force crashed into Ryu, sending him skidding across the ground. He quickly regained his balance, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the human-like demon. The demon had pale white skin, claws, and shadow-like markings on his arms. This wasn't an ordinary demon. Ryu sensed the power of the Upper Moon Demon. At the same time, Muzan's body fully regenerated, his once pulverized form now restored. Looking at Ryu, he exuded an intense malicious aura, enough to suffocate the air around him. It's you, Nature Hashira Ryu. It's Muzan. Gyume's booming voice warned the newly arrived Hashira. Cutting off his head isn't enough to kill him. Hearing his words and the sight of Muzan for the first time left the Hashira momentarily stunned. However, without hesitation, they drew their katanas and launched their strongest breathing forms, as they dashed toward Muzan. Surrounded on all sides, Muzan's lips curled into a mysterious grin. Just as the Hashira prepared to strike, the sound of a biwa resonated through the battlefield again. Beneath everyone, sliding doors appeared, revealing the Infinity Castle. The ground vanished, and without footing, the demon slayers found themselves plummeting into the depths of the Infinity Castle. The demon who had earlier used his blood demon art to stop Ryu from killing Muzan smiled at him and provoked him with a hand gesture as if asking him to come at him. Then, alongside Muzan, he too leaped through the sliding door and vanished into the castle. If he wanted, Ryu could easily avoid falling into the sliding door beneath him, given his speed and reflex, but wasn't he waiting for this very moment? He willingly allowed himself to fall into the door, along with the other Hashira. As they descended, he glanced at Kanae, who was a short distance away from him in the freefall. His voice cut through the wind as he called out, "Be careful, Kanae." Hearing his words, Kanae smiled softly, her eyes reassuring him not to worry. Though he warned her, Ryu wasn't deeply worried. He knew Kanae's strength, she was strong enough to face Upper Moon demons like Doma without losing. As he descended into the Infinity Castle, Ryu's eyes narrowed as he thought of the demon he had confronted earlier. That demon, his smile, as if he knew me. He's definitely from Earth, but I don't remember seeing him with the same group of Earth humans. The realization puzzled him. And why would they join forces with Muzan? Isn't it seeking death? Recalling the information shared by his system about Earth, Ryu quickly came to a conclusion. The 4 Earth humans who assassinated me must have left, and now a new group with even greater strength has appeared. Since they think of me as an anomaly, Earth must have sent powerful humans to deal with me. Looks like the battle is inevitable. If possible, Ryu doesn't want to deal with them since they all are from the same place, but if they force him, he won't have any choice but to kill them. There are many forces on Earth. Once they enter the fictional worlds, the rules and lives of even fellow humans from Earth mean nothing to them, only the rewards matter. It was a cruel fact. Earth had transformed, and so had its people. For many, the fictional worlds were hunting grounds. Rewards like abilities, strength, and finishing the task were all that mattered. The humans who came to this world are united because they belong to the same group and their numbers are limited since only 4 can enter the Demon Slayer world at once. But the unity among Earth's forces wouldn't last in higher level worlds as they may turn against one another for higher rewards and the world clear. As clearing and taking ownership of higher level worlds is crucial to them. With that, they can create a force of high level humans. Ryu landed lightly on the wooden floor as the Infinity Castle morphed into a house-like structure around him. Immediately, an overwhelming swarm of demons, nearly 100 in number, surged toward him from all directions. It was clear these demons were stationed here just to deal with him or wear him down. Nature breathing. Ryu muttered under his breath, his body becoming a blur as he dashed through the horde of demons. In mere seconds, every demon turned to ash, disintegrating into the air as if they had never existed. Each demon was as strong as a lower rank, created with the purpose of wearing down the demon slayers. But against Ryu, they didn't stand a chance. As he killed the demons, Ryu heard a chime of system notifications in his mind. He called up his status panel to check the number of demon points he has. Name, Ryu. Physique, Nature Advanced, 42%. Skill, Nature Breathing, Proficient 1/500, Tech High Max, Sharingan Not Upgradable, Transparent World. Demon Points, 400. He saw his demon points had climbed to 400, just 100 short of what he needed to fully max his nature breathing proficiency. Closing his status panel, Ryu strode through the seemingly endless halls of the Infinity Castle, cutting down every demon that crossed his path. The castle itself twisted and shifted, trying to disorient and crush him, but nothing it did could stop his advance. Suddenly, his Kasugai crow, with the talisman tied around its body, appeared overhead and delivered a message. Kanae had encountered Upper Moon 2, Doma. Is it fate or? Ryu thought, his eyes narrowed. Though Kanae was strong, his instincts wouldn't let him rest easy as she was facing Doma alone. His love for her couldn't help but make him worry. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? Without wasting time, he instructed his crow to lead him to Kanae and dashed forward, activating his nature mode. A surge of powerful energy coursed through him as he tore through the castle, destroying the walls and corridors in his path. Chapter 70, Kanae's Strength. Kanae stood before Doma in one of the chambers of the Infinity Castle. Doma smiled with feigned enthusiasm, flicking his war fan open. Oh my, I remember you, the flower Hashira girl, the prey I missed. You know, I was hoping to meet you again, but no luck until now. I will have to thank Nakame-chan for sending you to me, Doma said, his voice a blend of amusement and the joy of seeing her again. Kanae's eyes sharpened, her grip tightening on her Nichiren sword. Indeed. I've been searching for you as well. But this time, the fight won't be as one-sided as before. Oh. With a deep breath, Kanae dashed forward, her flower breathing honed to perfection. Flower petals seemed to dance in the air as she moved with unmatched grace. Her breathing style, refined by Ryu's training, amplified her strength, allowing her sword strikes to flow with incredible speed and flexibility. In a flash, she appeared before Doma like a petal caught in the wind, her blade aimed directly at his chest. Doma barely managed to block the attack with his Japanese war fan, the sheer force sending him skidding backward. His usual carefree smile vanished, replaced by genuine surprise. This was not the girl he had fought before. She was countless times stronger, able to push him back with natural strength. Interesting. You've grown much stronger. But it's still no use against a demon like me, Doma smiled again. With a wave of his fan, ice lotuses bloomed, releasing a flurry of ice-cold shards that shot toward Kanae. The castle walls shimmered with frost, and the floor beneath them glazed over with ice. Fourth form, Crimson Hanagoromo. Kanae unleashed a sword slash, twisting gracefully through the air and shattering the ice shards in her path. Without stopping, she slipped past Doma's defenses, slicing through his sleeve and drawing blood across his chest. The shock in his eyes deepened as he stared down at the blood seeping through his robes. Such elegance, yet it's still useless. His wound healed instantly, visible to the naked eye. You should go for my head. Kanae, having faced him before, knew better than others about his blood demon art. The ice created from Doma's blood demon art is extremely lethal to those who inhale it. Even though Kanae knows and only breathes when away from his attacks, she can still feel the cold air in her lungs. Prolonging a battle against such a demon was nothing short of suicidal. I have to end this fast. Kanae thought, with a determined expression. I have to admit, girl, you are stronger than any Hashira I have met before. I'm going to enjoy accepting you within me. We'll live together for eternity. Doma's words were filled with happiness. Against such words, Kanae remained unfazed. Her grip tightened around her blade as she focused her breathing, planning to end the battle with her strongest move. Flower breathing, final form, equinoctial vermilion eye. Her vision sharpened to its utmost limit, time seeming to slow the world around her. Every movement and action became clear in her eyes. With a burst of speed, Kanae flashed toward Doma, her body a blur of afterimages. With a kick to the floor, she leaped into the air, spinning effortlessly like a flower petal caught in a violent storm, her sword raised high for the strongest blow. Doma, however, was not as careless as before. With a smile still on his face, he activated one of his most powerful techniques. Rime Water Lily Bodhisattva. An enormous ice bodhisattva statue materialized behind him, its hands in a prayer position, surrounded by beautiful frozen lotuses. From its open mouth, it unleashed a massive gust of deadly ice, enough to freeze everything in its path. Kanae's eyes, enhanced by her breathing technique, caught the flow of the icy gust. In mid-air, there was no way to dodge. Instead of trying to avoid it, she advanced. She swung her Nichiren sword countless times in precise movement, slicing through the icy torrent, and creating a gap. Frost clung to her clothes and skin, biting with piercing cold as she charged forward, undeterred by Doma's attack. Doma's eyes widened at her advance. Despite the cold freezing the air around her, Kanae continued her attack, her blade gleaming with intent to kill. Seeing this, Doma swung his war fans, aiming directly for her chest, his attack fast and lethal, laced with a barrage of ice shards. Slash! His strike landed, but even as the fan cut across Kanae's chest, she did not stop. Her form remained flawless. Her Nichiren blade gleamed in the warm light of the Infinity Castle as she performed her final move. She slashed with strength and perfect form, her sword cleaving downward in a deadly arc. Doma's smile froze, his body went stiff for a moment as the sharp edge of Kanae's blade sliced through his neck. His fans fell from his hands as his head rolled from his neck, disbelief etched into his expression. Impossible! He whispered, still trying to comprehend how he had been defeated. He had struck Kanae with enough strength to split her in two, yet she was completely fine. Kanae landed softly behind him, her back turned. The severed head of Upper Moon 2, Doma, tumbled to the ground, rolling until it lay still at her feet. Thanks for the suggestion, Kanae remarked coolly as she sheathed her sword. I went for your head. Good for you. Ah! I remember. That boy used the same method to withstand my attack. How wonderful! Even in death, Doma remained curious, devoid of fear as his body began to disintegrate into fine ash, scattering into the air. As Doma had guessed, Kanae used Tekai, hardening her muscles to reduce the force of the attack. The cut was shallow, but frost still spread across her wound, at least it saved her from what could have been a killing blow. Still, blood trickled from her mouth as she began to cough. Though she had escaped a fatal blow, the force of the attack had still injured her, but it wasn't life-threatening. Let's go and help the others. Kanae thought, using her breathing technique to staunch the bleeding. However, she couldn't do anything about the frost spread across her body. At that moment, applause echoed through the chamber as a new demon stepped through the door. Following him were two more demons, all resembling humans aside from their distinctive demonic traits, tails, pale skin, markings, and demon eyes. Oh, you were simply amazing, Kanae Koko. Did your lover boy give you some special lessons for that? One of the demons with a tail remarked vulgarly. He's one of the Earth humans, Ignis. Let's not waste time capture her. He'll undoubtedly make mistakes once she's in our grasp, said another demon, his skin marred by cracks. This one was another Earth human, Raiden. Seeing their imposing figures, radiating a presence on par with Doma's, Kanae's senses went into high alert. From their words, she grasped the key point. You're here for Ryu? Who are you all? Chapter 71, Confrontation with Earth Humans. Suddenly, Kanae felt her body bound, her limbs held down by someone from behind. A presence emerged, and a female demon appeared behind her. It was Moon Shadow, emerging from her invisibility ability. What? Kanae reacted, but she couldn't break free from the demon's grasp. I didn't sense her presence at all. Is her blood demon art related to invisibility? Siros, Ignis, Raiden, and Moon Shadow had all turned into demons. After becoming a demon, Siros has taken the position of Upper Moon 3 with ease, with his strength. Following that, he turned the other 3 into demons as well. If Muzan hadn't been busy tracking down the Yubayashiki family and Nezuko, their plan wouldn't be so smooth. After all, the Demon King was no fool. But they had planned it all, knowing Muzan would be occupied after finding Nezuko's ability to walk in the sun. As planned, they had just used a cleansing potion to break free from Muzan's curse and control. By now, Muzan likely sensed their betrayal, but it no longer mattered. Once they deal with Ryu, he's their next target. Alright, tie her up. Ignis, use your blood demon art and attach the explosive blood seeds to her. Moon Shadow, go invisible again, Siros instructed, his tone sharp and cold. Just after Kanae met Doma, the Kasugai Crow had already sent the message. By now, Ryu should be on his way here if he really loves her. Let's get ready to greet him. Hearing their words, Kanae's widened. Who are these people? They don't seem like regular demons, and why are they targeting Ryu? Just as Siros finished his words, a sharp crack resounded from above. With a violent crash, Ryu's figure burst through the ceiling, fragments of the castle's floor scattering as he landed. The ground trembled, and the wooden floor shattered under Ryu's landing. His presence radiated an overwhelming aura that even Siros, who had seen his share of power in other worlds, felt his body tense. Ignis and Raiden, on the other hand, were left breathless, cold sweat dripping down their foreheads as they struggled under the suffocating weight of his aura. Ryu's cold gaze fixed on Moon Shadow, who was still restraining Kanae. In that instant, Moon Shadow's instincts screamed. Without hesitation, she activated her blood demon art instinctively, her body vanishing as Ryu's Nichiren sword sliced through the air where her neck had been just moments before. She reappeared next to Siros, her heart pounding and her face pale with terror even as a demon. For a moment, she had felt the aura of death. If not for her blood demon art, shadow teleportation, she would have been dead for sure. Moon Shadow. Siros called, his tone stern. Without Kanae in their grasp, their previous plan was no use. Now, they had no choice but to face Ryu head-on. I'm sorry. If I had been even a second later, my head would be rolling on the floor by now. He's terrifying, even scarier than Muzan. We don't stand a chance against him, Moon Shadow confessed, her voice trembling. How did he get here so quickly, bypassing Nakame's ability? Siros's eyes narrowed as he looked at Ryu. Even he couldn't deny Ryu was unlike any foe he had faced before. Are you all right, Kanae? Ryu asked, his voice filled with concern as he glanced at her condition. Kanae nodded weakly. Yes, but they're not ordinary demons, and their target seems to be you. I know, Ryu said and scanned her body using Transparent World. He noticed Doma's blood demon art still lingering within her. Some of her cells had been frozen, and although the damage wasn't life-threatening, it would affect her ability to perform total concentration breathing at full strength. Your lungs have been affected by Doma's ice, Ryu said. You'll need treatment. If you strain yourself too much, the damage might become permanent. Take rest and leave everything to me. Kanae's eyes blazed with determination as she clenched her fists. I can still fight. She wants to stand beside Ryu and fight. No need. Ryu stood tall, his gaze shifting back to Siros, Ignis, Raiden, and Moon Shadow. They have come for me. It's my fight. The atmosphere grew tense, feeling Ryu's gaze they felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them. Even as demons, they were suppressed by his strong presence. I will give you guys one last chance. Leave. I am giving this opportunity because we come from the same place. Otherwise, I would have already killed you for touching my Kanae. Ryu warned, despite being angry. He gave them a final opportunity to withdraw. Siros laughed, but his eyes blazed with murderous intent. What high-sounding words! Don't forget, you're our target because you betrayed humanity. You're the traitor. If we don't do something, countless will die. Even if we have to sacrifice ourselves, we'll kill you here. Ryu shook his head and said calmly. I'm not what you say I am. That's all I can say. Hearing the conversation, Kanae felt confused. Betraying humanity. Traitor. She couldn't piece together their words. Ryu isn't anything like they say. Nothing about their accusations made sense to her. Silence ensued. Only for a moment before the four of them sprang into action, ignoring Ryu's final warning. Of course, they wouldn't. They hadn't come to this world to withdraw. Their sole purpose is to kill Ryu. Siros was the first to move, stretching out his hand as a metallic device appeared in his grip. With a thought, it emitted a red beam of light, forming a lightsaber that hummed in the air. With explosive force to his feet, he leaped high, swinging the saber down toward Ryu in a downward strike. The power of the force. Ryu recognized Siros's ability with a glance, instantly parrying it with his Nichiren sword. Zzz. The clash of metal and energy released a slight shockwave through the air. The searing heat of Siro's lightsaber began to burn against Ryu's Nichiren blade, showing signs of cutting through. Before Ryu could push him away, countless tiny lights, like glowing fireflies, swarmed in from all directions. Explosive fire seeds. Ignis whispered as he rushed toward Ryu, activating his blood demon art. Ryu quickly distanced himself away from Siros and waved his sword with precise movements, slicing through the glowing fireflies. One of the fireflies that escaped his blade detonated with a loud bang, releasing a wave of scorching flames. The mini explosion wasn't even strong enough to graze Ryu's clothes. The flames, however, didn't vanish after the explosion, but they twisted and pursued him, controlled by Ignis' firebending ability. Firebending. Ryu instantly recognized Ignis' ability from the way he moved and controlled the flames. With a powerful swing of his sword, he unleashed gusts of wind blades, which sliced through the fire, splitting them into fragments. As Ryu dealt with the flames, Raiden's figure appeared before him, his entire body transformed into stone, cracks running across his impenetrable skin. His right fist crackled with violent arcs of lightning as he aimed a brutal punch at Ryu's chest. Ryu dodged the blow with ease by shifting his body, and before Raiden could react, he kicked his stomach lightning fast. The force sent Raiden crashing into the wall with a thunderous impact, shaking the entire chamber. At that moment, Ryu noticed that the woman named Moon Shadow had vanished from his sight. Her presence had completely disappeared. Even with his nature perception, he couldn't sense her. An ability to turn invisible. He thought. Chapter 72, The Fall of Earth Humans. As soon as Moon Shadow vanished, Ryu hardened his body with Tekai. The next moment, a sudden force shot him from behind. A dagger stabbed his back, but it couldn't even pierce his skin. The combined method of Tekai and nature mode made Ryu's body impervious to such attacks. Of course, with enough force, even his abilities could be overpowered, but there wasn't anyone in this world, not even Muzan, strong enough to break through his Tekai and nature mode. What a troublesome ability she has, Ryu mused. Aside from invisibility, he surmised that her blood demon art was related to shadows. If his guess was correct, she could likely teleport between them the shadows of living. Without hesitation, Ryu slammed his left elbow backward without holding back his strength. His elbow connected with something unseen, the impact sending Moon Shadow, still invisible, crashing into the wooden wall. Her invisibility was broken as her body was forced back into view. She may be invisible to perception and sight, but her physical form is still vulnerable, Ryu thought. Moon Shadow's invisibility was connected to how long she could hold her breath. After becoming a demon, her breath control had increased drastically, but Ryu's punch pulverized her internals into a mess, forcing her out of the invisible state ahead of time. Thankfully, being a demon now, her damaged organs began to regenerate slowly. It wasn't as fast as beings like Akaza or Kokushibo, likely because she hadn't consumed as many humans as the upper moons. Siros attacked at the same moment as Moon Shadow stabbed at Ryu's back. His lightsaber blazed red as it cut through the air toward Ryu. This time, Ryu infused his Nichiren sword with nature energy before meeting the attack, ensuring it wouldn't be overpowered by the lightsaber's heat. Blood demon art, gravity crush, Siros muttered under his breath, and the atmosphere shifted abruptly. A crushing force descended on Ryu, increasing the gravity around him fivefold, trying to pin him to the ground. The sudden pressure caught him off guard for a split second. At that moment, Siros used the opportunity as his lightsaber descended in a deadly arc, slashing across Ryu's chest. The impact of the attack sent him flying backward, crashing through the walls of the Infinity Castle, dust and debris erupting into the air. Despite the powerful blow from Siros, Ryu rose from the rubble, his body unharmed, except for the cut at his chest where his clothes had torn. Across the battlefield, Siros, Ignis, Raiden, and Moon Shadow regrouped, their expressions serious. How is this possible? Not even a scratch. Sweat beaded on Siros's brow, his mind thinking. Not only did I increase the gravity around him, but I also lightened the gravity around myself to enhance my strength and used force. That strike should have destroyed any normal human. His physical strength is stronger than demons. Combined with Tekai, he's nearly impenetrable. Moon Shadow remarked. She hadn't turned invisible again due to the cooldown of her skill. It wasn't long, but in a battle like this, it became a serious hindrance. He's a human with limited energy. We can win. Siros declared. Kanae looked at them with a serious expression. Their weapons, skills, and even the way they spoke it all felt strange and out of place to her. Moreover, each of them possessed the strength of an upper moon demon. Seeing their coordination, she felt uneasy and looked at Ryu. Ryu casually dusted off his clothes, his expression unbothered. His gaze fell on his Nichiren sword, noticing a crack from its clash with the lightsaber. With a quiet sigh, he sheathed the damaged blade. That sword had been with him for a long time, but now it was damaged. Walking forward, Ryu stretched out his hand, and a new sword appeared in his grip. The blade was a deep, shimmering purple, slightly longer than his Nichiren sword, radiating a fierce, cutting intent while its sharp edge gleamed under the light. This was the sword Akazuchi, that he got from the system. He had never needed to use it before, because there's no worthy enemy. But now, it was time to show its might. It seems you won't rest until you kill me, Ryu's voice echoed through the hall. Since you've given me no choice, so be it. Get ready, everyone. Let's fight as we planned, Siros commanded, gripping his lightsaber. The battle erupted once more. With an explosive force, Ryu dashed forward, his figure disappearing from sight in an instant. The four Earth humans quickly activated their abilities and blood demon arts, preparing to face him. Siros raised his lightsaber to strike, Moon Shadow prepared to vanish into her invisible state, Ignis released his firefly-like demon insects, and Raiden's body hardened. But none of them were prepared for what came next. As Ryu's form reappeared before them, his eyes turned into three Tomo Sharingan, catching them completely all off guard. Moon Shadow, in the midst of vanishing, froze, her mind clouded in a trance. Ignis, who had been ready to unleash his explosive seeds, turned his attack on Raiden instead, sending his demon fireflies swarming toward him. Fuck! Ignis, snap out of it! Raiden roared, but Ignis remained absent-minded, caught in the illusion. A series of deafening bangs echoed as Ignis's demon fireflies detonated against Raiden's stone-like body, shattering it in multiple places. The blasts left his hardened form riddled with horrifying injuries and punctures. That's Sharingan? How does he possess the Sharingan? No. Now's not the time to think. Before Siros could even snap out of his thoughts, Ryu was already in front of him. Nature breathing, 8th form time zone. Ryu didn't even give Siros a chance to activate his gravity-related blood demon art. In time zone, everything around him seemed to slow down with his speed multiplied exponentially. With a precise swing of his sword Akazuchi that was imbued with natural energy, it sliced cleanly through Siros's neck. A thin red line appeared on Siros's neck, the blade so sharp it took a moment for the cut to register. Siros's eyes widened in shock, his hands instinctively reaching for his throat as blood slowly trickled down. A moment later, his head slid from his neck and fell to the ground. Ryu didn't stop, his figure became a blur as he targeted Moon Shadow, Ignis, and Raiden. None of them stood a chance. Moon Shadow and Ignis remained locked in their trance, completely exposed, while Raiden, already weakened from Ignis's earlier attack, couldn't defend himself. With blinding speed, Ryu decapitated them all, their heads hitting the floor in near-perfect unison. You! Siros gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. His head began to disintegrate, his body crumbling to dust. He began to understand, from the start, they never stood a chance. He's ridiculously strong. Ryu stood amidst the disintegrating ashes of the four, letting out a quiet sigh. You guys chose this path, this was the only way it could end, he said softly, a trace of slight sorrow in his voice. They were fellow humans from Earth, but they left him no choice. In a battle of life and death, only one side could survive. Chapter 73, Meeting Kokushibo again. Kanae blinked, her eyes filled with confusion. By the time she blinked her eyes, Ryu had already beheaded all four demons. It happened in the span of a heartbeat. So strong, she thought. She always knew Ryu was powerful, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. It might have seemed like they had been fighting for so long, but only a few seconds had passed from the moment Ryu arrived until the battle ended. His overwhelming strength was beyond human comprehension. Let's go, Ryu said, his voice calm as he sheathed his sword. It's time to end the era of demons. Mn. Kanae nodded and followed Ryu quietly without asking anything. After a moment of silence, Ryu glanced over his shoulder. Don't you want to know? He asked softly, expecting her to question him. I do want to know, Kanae admitted, naturally curious, but she knew Ryu would tell her when the time was right. I'll explain everything clearly when this is all over, Ryu said with a small smile, respecting the trust Kanae placed in him. Together they moved forward, walking through the passages of the Infinity Castle. After a short time, they encountered a group of demon slayers, led by Shinobu, alongside Tamayo and Yoshiro. Relief washed over Shinobu as she saw Kanae. Sister! She called, rushing to her side. But the moment she got closer, her expression changed as her sharp eyes quickly assessed Kanae's injuries. Nothing to worry about, Shinobu, just some minor injuries, Kanae reassured her with a gentle smile. Ryu glanced at Shinobu and said, your sister is really reckless. But what she did was the right move. Instead of dragging out the fight, she ended it with a single move, at the cost of exchanging injuries. She's injured, but it's not serious. She just needs some rest. Don't let her fight again, or it will worsen her injuries. What are you saying? I'm a Hashira, Kanae disagreed, her voice firm. It's my responsibility to fight the demons and Muzan. I won't sit by and watch, no matter what. I'm sorry, sister. You are not going anywhere with your condition. Shinobu said and injected Kanae with a pre-prepared medicine to treat her injuries. Ryu-san will take care of Muzan. Leave everything to me, Ryu said, meeting Kanae's gaze. Then, he turned toward Tamayo and Yoshiro, his expression turned serious. Tamayo-san, Yoshiro, I need your help to take down the demon controlling this castle while I handle Muzan. Get the help of other Hashira and ensure that everyone gets out of the Infinity Castle safely. With their unique abilities to mask their presence and induce hallucinations, Yoshiro and Tamayo were the perfect people to take down Nakame. Their blood demon arts would allow them to approach undetected. Tamayo nodded, her eyes firm. Understood. We'll take care of it. As for Yoshiro, he stood quietly behind Tamayo like a loyal knight. Whatever Tamayo-sama wants, he would do without hesitation. Her will was his command. Okay, guys, be safe, Ryu said, and with a final nod, he began to sprint toward Muzan's location, guided by the Kasugai crow. As if sensing Ryu's thoughts, the Infinity Castle shifted unpredictably around him, trying to obstruct him from moving towards Muzan. Gigantic pillars suddenly lunged toward him, while entire rooms rotated and changed positions, creating a labyrinth of chaos. The attacks weren't life-threatening or strong enough to stop Ryu, but they were troublesome and time-consuming to bypass. Fortunately, the Kasugai crow flew overhead and provided clear instructions that guided him through the ever-changing rooms. After a while, Ryu finally entered a vast grand hall decked with towering pillars. Beyond this chamber was Muzan, but Ryu noticed people in the hall. Upper Moon 1, Kokushibo, stood before Gyume, Kyojuro, Muchiro, Sanamai, and Jinya, his 6 eyes gazing calmly at them. The atmosphere was thick with tension as the 5 warriors prepared themselves for the confrontation with the strongest demon beneath Muzan. However, Ryu's sudden arrival caused them to pause. Kokushibo also noticed his presence and looked at him. So, you're here, Kokushibo said, his voice deep and resounding. It seems the 4 of them failed to kill you. I expected this. Even if you hadn't killed them, I would have. Those 4 were mysterious and calculating. I still don't understand why they chose to betray Muzan-sama or how they managed to escape his control. But it no longer matters since they are gone now. Ryu's eyes were calm at the mention of 4 of them. Kokushibo continued, last time, the sun interrupted our fight. In this castle, there is no such thing as sunlight. Indeed. Ryu chuckled, his fingers touching the hilt of his unsheathed sword, a kazuchi. You are a disgrace to your brother Yorichi. I can hardly fathom how you were born from the same mother. When he was alive, not a single demon could scratch his body until his death, not even Muzan. Yet you, even after becoming a demon, you still can't match his strength. At the mention of his brother, Kokushibo's eyes narrowed, and a terrifying pressure enveloped everyone in the room. Are you angry? You are not worthy of that anger, Ryu replied, in the face of Kokushibo's growing irritation. Ryu had no time to waste on Kokushibo. He intended to kill him in a single strike and move forward. He took a firm stance, but Jiume interrupted him, saying, Ryu, go deal with Muzan. We can handle him. The longer we waste time, the more Muzan will use this opportunity to neutralize the drug Tamayo injected into him. Ryu watched their determined faces, noticing the fierce resolve in their eyes. He could feel by the aura radiating from them, that they would give everything to defeat Kokushibo. Jiume and Kyojuro had grown significantly stronger under his guidance, far surpassing their original strength. He knew that even if they struggle initially, with their combined strength they would eventually take down Kokushibo. It's better for them to stay here and face Upper Moon 1. If they come with me to fight Muzan, they might become a distraction by putting themselves at risk. I may end up having to protect them instead of focusing on the battle. Having decided, Ryu said. Alright, be careful, guys. Kyojuro, don't die. Ha ha ha, what are you saying, Ryu? I'm not the same person who fought Upper Moon 3, I'm stronger now. Kyojuro laughed confidently. Tisk. You'd better kill Muzan before we finish the demon before us and come to join you. Or else, I'll start looking down on your title as the strongest Hashira, Sanamai uttered, his tone sharp as ever. Chapter 74, Ryu vs Muzan. You are not going anywhere. Kokushibo said in a deep voice as he vanished from sight. When he reappeared he was just a few feet away from Ryu. Moon breathing, 16th form, Moonbow, half moon. With a deadly upward swing of his flesh katana, Kokushibo unleashed 6 curved slashes that crashed down toward Ryu. Ryu didn't even look at Kokushibo's attack. Turning his back, he walked away, fully trusting the Hashiras to deal with it. After all, he had already told them about Kokushibo's abilities and identity, having even sparred with them simulating how the Upper Moon would fight. 6 razor-sharp slashes arced through the air, each one aimed to cleave Ryu apart. But just as the strikes were about to reach him, Sanamai sprang into action, intercepting the attack with his own technique. 6th form, Black Wind Mountain Mist. Sanamai slashed his sword, summoning a tempest of slashing winds that engulfed the incoming attacks. The tornado of slashes deflected Kokushibo's assault. At the same moment, Jiume charged forward, his flail spinning with deadly momentum. Stone Breathing, 2nd form, Upper Smash. He swung the spiked flail with incredible strength. The weapon aimed straight for Kokushibo's head, but the demon evaded, showing unbelievable speed. However, Jiume's chain wrapped around his neck, trying to restrain him. Without giving Kokushibo a chance to breathe, Kyojuro and Muchiro pressed forward. They attacked in perfect synchronization, each of them displaying their breathing style. Flame Breathing, 1st form, Unknowing Fire. Kyojuro jetted forward, flames dancing around his blade as he launched a powerful strike toward Kokushibo, who was ducked in time to free himself from Jiume's chain and parried the slash. Muchiro followed suit with his own attack. Mist Breathing, 2nd form, Eightfold Mist, he whispered, enveloping Kokushibo in thick fog while performing 6 slashes in succession. Meanwhile, in the distance, Jinya reloaded his double-barreled shotgun and aimed it at Kokushibo, waiting for the right opportunity to fire, unaware that the demon had already sensed his presence. As the 5 of them engaged in an intense clash with Kokushibo, Ryu's figure disappeared from view, rushing toward Muzan's location. Dash. As Ryu advanced, he was surprised to find that the structure of the Infinity Castle had stopped its usual shifting and attacking. It seems Tamayo and Yoshiro succeeded, he thought. At the same moment, he sensed Muzan's presence in overwhelming, malicious aura just from a distance away. Muzan was close. Without hesitation, Ryu dashed forward, planning to end it all, as soon as possible. Within seconds, Ryu arrived at a vast floor filled with rooms, its architecture spiraling upward with multiple floors circling a wide open space in the center. And there, suspended in the heart of the chamber, was Muzan Kibutsuji encased within a grotesque, pulsating cocoon of flesh. He wasn't alone. With the Infinity Castle's movements stopped, many demon slayers had arrived at the scene, spreading out across the multiple floors. Among them were familiar figures Ryou, Tanjiro, and Inosuke, each ready to fight Muzan. They don't look that injured, just some torn fabrics and scratches. The flesh cocoon writhed, the flesh pulsating as if it were alive. Muzan was attempting to dissolve Tamayo's poison within the cocoon. Ryu's arrival immediately drew the attention of everyone present. Ryou, Tanjiro, and Inosuke swiftly leaped to his side, their faces solemn. Ryu-sama, what should we do? One of the demon slayers asked, his voice uncertain as they all gazed up at Muzan's grotesque flesh cocoon suspended mid-air. The cocoon hovered out of reach, and with the endless depth below, the risk of falling to death was high. None of them could see the ground beneath them, as the floors stretched endlessly. "Let's strike before he dissolves the poison," Ryou said in his usual cool tone, unsheathing his sword as he prepared to act. "No," Ryu interjected. "There are so many people here, they'll be at risk. Muzan could massacre and consume them to replenish his energy." He turned to Ryou, Tanjiro, and Inashuk. "Get everyone out of here. I'll deal with Muzan." The demon slayers obeyed the command and began to retreat, albeit unwillingly. Many of them wanted to fight Muzan, as most had suffered because of him in one way or another. Before they could fully retreat, the cocoon jerked with a tearing sound. From within, Muzan emerged with a brand new appearance. His hair was now far longer and silver-white due to his accelerated aging, while his body was covered in numerous jaws, each lined with sharp, white fangs. Muzan's crimson eyes burned with malice and rage, while his body overflowed with a terrifying aura and violent intent to massacre everything. He had been so close to dissolving the poison Tamayo had created, but now, he was interrupted. So of course, he's furious. It wasn't directed at the demon slayers but at Nakame. What is Nakame doing? Letting them reach here this quickly? At the same time, Muzan's demonic eyes locked onto Ryu, sensing the immense strength and vitality radiating from him. An insatiable urge to consume Ryu surged within him. His primal instinct tells him if he does that, his strength could transcend into a new realm. But Muzan suppressed his urge and spoke with a slight smile. "So, you're here, Nature Hashira, Ryu. I can tell you're different from the others, an abnormality. I've also encountered some who claim to come from the same place as you, wielding supernatural powers. It seems you killed them. They deserve it." He offered, "I lack a powerful subordinate. Why don't you join me? Help me capture that girl who conquered the sun, and I'll grant you immortality. Once I absorb her power, I can even help you walk in the Sunday." Muzan paused, his tone turned generous and merciful. "Even though you've killed many of my subordinates, I offer you this chance. Because you are special. You look so pathetic, Muzan." Ryu chuckled, his tone filled with sarcasm. His mocking gaze locked onto Muzan's crimson eyes. "You're just a product of someone's experimental drug. Don't deceive yourself into thinking you're some kind of god. You're nothing." Hearing Ryu's words, Muzan's eyes narrowed, igniting with flames of fury. In an instant, he transformed his arms into long, spiked tendrils that lashed out like whips, aiming at Ryu. Ryu, however, remained unfazed. He casually waved his sword, a kazuchi, multiple times, slicing through the tendrils with ease. Seeing Ryu effortlessly slice through his attacks, Muzan felt an unknown fear. It was as if he stood before another Yoriichi, one even stronger than the latter. Chapter 75, Ryu vs Muzan, Final. "Nakame, what's happening?" Muzan called in his mind while the ground beneath him shattered, wooden beams and debris flying in all directions as his bladed whip slashed wildly and clashed with Ryu. "Nakame," he roared in his mind again, but there was no response. No doubt, someone's controlling Nakame as he could feel the control of the Infinity Castle slipping away from her. Muzan's eyes gleamed with deadly intent and anger, but he barely had time to dwell on it. Ryu had closed the gap between them in an instant, his form a blur of speed. With a kazuchi in hand, Ryu slashed through Muzan's flurry of blood blades as if they were nothing more than paper. To Muzan's horror, he realized his bladed whips weren't regenerating. Every time Ryu slashed through them, they disintegrated into ash, vanishing completely. Forced to create more whips, Muzan could feel his energy being consumed rapidly. It reminded him of the battle he fought Yoriichi, whose sun blade had the terrifying ability to disrupt his regeneration. But before Ryu could launch the decisive strike, the entire Infinity Castle shook violently. The next moment, Ryu, Muzan, and the rest of the combatants found themselves ejected into the open air, landing amidst a small town. Muzan, furious, let out an earth-shattering roar that echoed through the night. "Ah!" His scream sent shockwaves rippling outward, obliterating the nearby wooden houses in a massive burst of power. The sheer force of his rage tore through the landscape, reducing everything in its path to ruins. Ryu stood with a calm expression, unfazed by Muzan's outburst and power. Tightening his grip on a kazuchi, he exhaled slowly and whispered, "It's time to end this." Without a word, Ryu's eyes turned into the 3 Tomo Sharingan while he also activated the transparent world. Instantly, the world around him sharpened, every minute detail becoming clear. Every muscle movement, every change in Muzan's breath and body was laid bare before his eyes. He could feel the trace of weakness in Muzan. It should be because of Tamayo's drug. No matter how strong you are, I will kill you today, Muzan growled, his voice laced with malice. He lunged forward with blinding speed, his red-bladed tendrils slicing through the air like deadly razors. But Ryu was faster. He dodged Muzan's blows with ease, his Sharingan and transparent world allowing him to predict every strike Muzan made. It was like watching a movie in slow motion, as he pressed forward. The clash between them was so intense that the surrounding area began to resemble the aftermath of a natural disaster. Each strike sent shockwaves rippling outward, leaving craters in the ground, and ruining nearby structures. Every demon slayer stood frozen, watching in awe as Ryu clashed with Muzan. The sheer intensity of the battle made their hearts race as none of them had ever witnessed such a display of power. Their blood boiled with excitement, watching Ryu face the Demon King alone, with overwhelming strength. Tanjiro, standing alongside Jiu, Inashuk, Kaneo, and Zenitsu, watched in silence. They all shared the same thought, so strong. Tamayo and Yoshiro stood in the back, watching in stunned amazement. Tamayo's heart pounded, nervous yet hopeful. She knew better than anyone how impossible it was to kill Muzan, but after meeting Ryu, she began to believe it was possible. Now, she was about to witness it unfold with her own eyes. Kanae stood beside her sister Shinobu, her injuries slightly better with the treatment. Shinobu whispered, "Ryu-san is fighting Muzan like it's nothing, he's amazing." Kanae watched quietly. She knew that Ryu hadn't even shown his full strength yet. Meanwhile, the Hashira locked in combat with Kokushibo could sense the overwhelming presence radiating from the battle between Ryu and Muzan. Despite their intense fight, it was impossible to ignore. Wasting no time, Ryu activated his nature mode, his eyes turned golden. Infusing his sword with natural energy, he swung it in a wide arc, unleashing a devastating wave of air blades that obliterated Muzan's attacks. The strike sliced forward with incredible speed, maintaining its momentum as it surged toward Muzan. The sudden attack caught Muzan off guard, but with extreme reflexes, he barely avoided the strike that nearly cleaved his body into two. His eyes widened in shock. "Impossible!" Muzan muttered, startled by Ryu's sudden and overwhelming increase in power. "This kind of strength is not something a human can unleash. No. I can't stay here any longer." Panic crept into Muzan's mind as he realized the dire situation, with his strength being affected by Tamayo's drug. Without wasting another moment, he attempted to split himself to escape, only to find he couldn't. He quickly attributed this failure to Tamayo's drug. "It's you, Tamayo. What did you do?" Muzan screamed at her from a distance. "You aren't going anywhere, Muzan," Ryu spoke. "Here I come." Saying this, Ryu walked forward slowly, exhaling deeply. Nature breathing, 9th form, Dance of the Void. This 9th form was the strongest of the nature breathing style, integrating all his sword movements into a single move. Time itself seemed to slow while Ryu felt the nature energy within his body consuming rapidly. Without wasting a moment, he dashed forward. Muzan, as the strongest demon, instinctively reacted, unleashing a flurry of blood blades in a monstrous swipe, hoping to slice Ryu apart. But Ryu glided through the attacks effortlessly, moving as if he were a shadow, slipping past each deadly strike. In an instant, he appeared before Muzan, his sword raised high. With a clean slash, Ryu severed Muzan's head from his body. Muzan stared wide-eyed, disbelief washing over him as even he himself couldn't comprehend how he had been beheaded so effortlessly. "How can this be?" he gasped. But Ryu wasn't finished with his attack. With the transparent world activated, he could see Muzan's 7 hearts and 5 brains, which allowed him to regenerate without a head. Ryu's movements became a blur, his blade slicing through the air with blinding speed. His slashes dismantled Muzan's body into numerous pieces, destroying his hearts and brains. To Muzan's horror, apart from his severed head, his body began to disintegrate. As his head fell to the ground, Muzan's instincts kicked in. He attempted to burrow into the earth, his only escape route, hoping to flee and regenerate. But Ryu was faster. He drove his sword into Muzan's head, pinning him firmly against the stone wall, ensuring there was no chance of escape. "You won't escape this time, Muzan. This is the end," Ryu declared, his voice steady. I won't waste my breath on useless words, knowing you have no emotions. Let me send you on your way. Looking at Ryu, horror coursed through Muzan's body as he felt the chilling grip of death. Even in his final moments, he struggled, his head split open vertically, revealing enormous jaws filled with sharp teeth as he lunged to bite Ryu. Balling his fist, Ryu smashed Muzan's head into a pulpy mess. But, Muzan's brain began to regenerate slowly. Ryu wasted no time, he withdrew his sword and unleashed a relentless flurry of slashes at Muzan's head, obliterating his last brain entirely. Even without sunlight, Muzan's head began to disintegrate into ashes, albeit slowly.
Thanks for listening.